A contact sheet is a way to deliver proofs to a client or as a photographer to select your favorite image from an output copy. Under the File menu in PhotoshopCS6, they brought back Automate and Contact Sheet 2. Contact Sheet has been in Photoshop for many versions, but a few versions ago, since Adobe Bridge built PDF contact sheets, they thought this was an unnecessary feature. Well, a lot of photographers said they missed it. They wanted the ability to build a contact sheet directly in Photoshop and output directly to their own digital device. They may not be sending a PDF off to the client. So we're going to choose Contact Sheet 2. In fact, in earlier versions of Photoshop, you could get that back as an optional installer, but most people didn't discover that. So I'm going to select the Austria folder from our Lesson 11 folder. And all I have to do is point to the folder itself. I don't have to select the files. It will grab everything in that folder. And I'll hit Open. If there were subfolders, it could include them. And if I wanted separate contact sheets for each subfolder, I could check Group Images by folder. I could change the unit of measure, inches for North America, or actually maybe centimeters for Canada or Europe, or pixels for the web. Now we're going to imagine this is a press quality contact sheet, and I'll do 8 by 10. Standard press quality resolution is 300 pixels per inch, but on your own device, if you're going digital only, you may only need 225, or some inkjets don't show much quality improvement over 150 pixels per inch. So try this test at 2 or 3 different resolutions for just one sheet on your own device. You'll notice for 300 you may not see a quality improvement over 225 if you're going to your own inkjet. Again, I'm referencing inkjet because that's what I know a lot of photographers use. But if you are going to a press quality proofing device, something calibrated to the printing press for their environment, you might be using CMYK. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, the color space for all plate making machines or film that you're using to make a plate for the printing press. And I know some catalog environments where they use lab color. Lab is actually the underlying color engine in Photoshop whenever you do a conversion. Lab actually uses luminance, which is the overall detail or contrast in an image, and then a chroma A and chroma B. But you will know if you need lab if you are in that environment. For most people, especially the photographers I'm talking to here, RGB will be fine for a home quality inkjet or a high-end inkjet that photographers may be printing their own proofs to. The bit depth you can select if you have a higher-end camera. You may have your images originally shot in 16-bit, which means that it captures more colors overall, a higher density range, but 8-bit is what we're using for this folder of images. And the default color profile here will be sRGB. sRGB is the standard color space for the web, but I happen to know many of my images end up going to digital print on demand, or they may possibly go to plate making. So I will use the better print industry standard of Adobe RGB 1998. When in doubt, if you're doing prepress or high-end print, that's a good starting point. But I highly encourage you to talk to your print shop. They will love that you even asked, and if they have their own profile that they recommend, they can pass that along to you electronically, or they can tell you to use one of the ones available out of the box. And some photographers prefer the Pro Photo RGB. If you're shooting on a high-end camera, it may give you richer gamuts on some inkjet devices that print 5, 6, or 7 colors. I know I'm going to stick with the industry standard for high-end print of Adobe RGB 1998. If there are Photoshop files, in fact, these files can originate as anything. If they're Photoshop files, I'll have it flatten the layers because I'm simply doing a mock-up. I'm just looking at this for color and contrast, and I could choose whether I want the images to go across and then down, or down and then across. We'll go across first, and I typically put 2 by 3 in for columns and rows, but you decide how many you want to fit on your sheet based on your sheet size. And I rarely like to rotate for best fit. I don't like my images to show up sideways on the sheet. Unless you're cutting this down to deliver to someone, you may want to take the best advantage of the page size that you have to work with and fill the image as much as you can. But I want to look at everything in its proper orientation, so I won't check rotate for best fit. And I'll leave the default font and size for the file name as a caption. That way, if the customer is looking at this proof sheet, they can just circle the one they want, and I see exactly what that image name is directly underneath. So I'll click OK, and what Photoshop is going to do is go through that entire Austria folder, place the images in a grid 2x3 as I asked for, on an 8x10 inch page, and you'll notice it's adding text layers below each for the file name as a caption. Now don't be alarmed if you don't see any images right away. Once they're all placed, then the images will show up. In fact, if there's more than one page worth, it'll fill that page and it'll start on the second page. I think I have 2 pages worth in this contact sheet folder. And then when both are finished, I could save these as PSD, or often you may just be proofing them, so you do your printout. You don't need to save, and then you can go back to the original files and work on the ones that the client selects based on this contact sheet. So here we have it. I'll zoom in with Command plus or Control plus. I could see the file names as captions, and I could print this out to my digital device or save the file to pass along to someone else. If I click back on Contact Sheet 1, there are all my images, and you may notice that it gets rid of all the layers. There's no need to keep those text layers or the individual layers that they used to place the images, because all I'm using this for is position and color. And that is the intent of a contact sheet, and I'm very happy that Adobe brought this back for my photographer friends. So through File, Automate, you have contact sheet back directly in Photoshop if you don't want to do a PDF contact sheet using Adobe Bridge.